Syracuse, sponsored by Carnation, airing live on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM in New Orleans. This show's entrance has been edited, produced, and directed by Gwen Clapper from Perfect Trust Productions, LLC. You can find us at perfecttrustproductions.com.
Hello and happy new year, everyone, and welcome to Horsefly Chronicles Radio, to Monday night segment of Horsefly Chronicles Radio with myself, Julia Syracuse, and Philip Syracuse. We're broadcasting live from the International Public Radio and the United Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM from New Orleans. This evening's show is fully sponsored by Carnation, so we want to thank them for their sponsorship. We love them. We'll have to do a few things in order to participate. Go over to the YouTube channel, UFO Paranormal Radio, or International Public Radio. You can also go into all of the Facebook stations, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, UFO Undercover with Joe Montaldo, News on the Flip Side, also Twitch, SoundCloud, Podbeam. Also go over to our group, Horsefly Chronicles Radio, and join if you haven't. And if you have any questions for our guests, please ask. So thank you, girls, for coming on tonight. So we want to welcome to the show Ms. Robyn Ramsey and Katie Peak. Robyn is the scientific director for Uni Research based out of Albany, New York. Katie is the chief investigator officer for Uni Research. They are both paranormal investigators. Together they form an amazing team for Paranormal Puzzle. You can find them on PowerFlix. So please, let's welcome them to the show. Yay!
Thank you.
Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
Hi.
So nice to see you girls again.
It's really good to see you too.
So how was your new year?
I can't hear Kate. But I actually didn't do anything. I stay at home. I've been doing that for a few years. There's a lot of reasons to stay home now, but I stayed home and relaxed. I did manage to stay up until the ball dropped, though. It was difficult.
Oh, you did. Well, that's more than we could say for us.
Yeah.
You can't hear Katie though. So
Katie, can you hear us?
Mic is muted. You would think that paranormal investigators are really great at staying up all night. We're not. I'm not. There she is.
Okay, there you go. You there, Katie?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There you go. Great.
Yes.
All right.
Goodness.
Great.
Hi.
I was going to say, New Year's was quiet. Thank God.
Well, we always like to ask our guests how you got started within paranormal because it's one of our favorite topics. And whoever wants to go first, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started. And we're going to take it from there and then go forward with a lot of questions. We had the pleasure of meeting both of you, and then we were very impressed with the work that you do. So, and it's different too. It was different than a lot of other teams.
I want to really get into that.
So whoever wants to go first, tell us your first paranormal experience, what age. We always want to go back to the age as well.
I'll go first. I can't remember a time that I don't think I was having experiences. I just didn't understand what they were. I remember being, 5, 6, 7 years old, and I'd hear, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd smell bacon cooking. I would hear people talking in the downstairs of my home, and I would open the door and I'd walk down fully expecting to see my entire family and, eggs and bacon, and it would be completely silent and there wouldn't be anything. And, I'd be in a room and I'd swear somebody walked by, and I'd go out and be like, Mom, did you call me? Did you need me? And she's like, I literally just walked in the door. And it seemed like no matter where I went, different homes, different states, different counties, I would always have these experiences. One of the ones that really solidified for me a different world was the last home that I lived in, kind of before I bought this one. We called him the farmer, and my son was very, very little. And I just remember looking down our stairs and seeing this big gentleman in overalls, white hair, and, you know, just a cowboy hat walk from our kitchen into our bathroom. And there was nowhere for him to go. So I was like, I've got this person. They've broken in my home. I'm going to get them. And I went flying down the stairs and jumped into the bathroom, and there was no one there. And I was like, I know what I saw. You're not going to tell me otherwise. And when I did some research on the property from the owners, they're like, oh yeah, that was my dad. He was a farmer on this land. And I went, well, he's still here. And things like that had always happened. I just didn't understand what they were. And I had watched the shows as a teen and always was very interested, but I never thought I'd get into it. And one day I was watching TV, John Griffin's face popped up on this TV, and I said, there's no way this man lives where I live. And I messaged him on Instagram and was like, hey, do you really live in Schenectady? Like, is this real? And he's like, yep, born and raised, grew up here. And I said, that's awesome. I live here too. Started a great friendship, and he asked me to be part of the team, and there was no looking back. And I met Robyn, and the three of us, this is where I say thank God for the pandemic, because we met through Zoom. So the first interaction I had with them was their faces. There was no phone calls. It was literally pop up, let's have a conversation, let's see each other. And it felt like talking to two friends that I just hadn't seen in 20 years. It wasn't weird. It wasn't uncomfortable. It just felt like we clicked instantly. And the more we do together, the more we click. And it feels like when the three of us aren't together, there's a little piece of you missing.
Yes. Wow.
I agree with all of that. Everything that you said, I feel so good right now. But I feel the same way. Like, it was one of those, like, we're instant friends, like, you know, you've known someone forever. I completely agree with that. And for me, I began like seeing things and like very young, like 3 years old. And of course, your parents just say you're imagining things, that sort of thing. But I think what really got me into the field, if I'll just like jump forward, because I lived in very haunted houses growing up, especially one in particular. But what made me actually decide to research and study and work hard at what we do is in 1997, my oldest brother was actually murdered. Okay, a violent murder in Waco, Texas. And it was shortly after that someone had the nerve to say to me, wow, you know, your brother was murdered. He's stuck right. His soul is going to be stuck right where he was killed. And I was like, this can't be right. This can't be right. That's not going to work, because he was, you know, killed in the street, in the middle of a street, in not a great neighborhood. And I thought, well, this can't be his eternity. This doesn't seem right. I'm going to find out for myself. So not only was it completely disturbing that someone would say something like that to me, but it was, in the long run, the catalyst for me putting together a group, starting to really study how to try to figure it out. And then it drew me directly to the science aspect of it. It really did. I started pretty early on using the equipment that we had at hand at the time, and which wasn't much. And so I decided that I would start inventing things and like, what can I put together, that sort of thing. And so I did that for a long time in Texas. This was Central Texas I was working in with my group, and they were fantastic. They were Austin Waco Ghost Hunter Society. But about 9 years ago, I moved to upstate New York for work. And Kate told the rest of the story. Like we ended up meeting each other. I met John through a meetup as well, which was really weird. Really quickly, I had never been to a meetup. You know, it's a little app on your phone. I guess you can use it on a computer. And I moved up here, and I was trying to meet people in the paranormal field, and it wasn't working, just passing by strangers, you know, on the street going, paranormal, paranormal, you know, like when the guy opens his jacket or whatever. It's like, so anyway, so I said, okay, I'm going to go see what this guy has to say. He had a little compelling speech on Meetup, and it's the only one I've ever been to. And I'll never go again because, well, it did its job. I went and met John, and it wasn't long after that I went ahead and joined the group because I liked what he had to say. I liked that he was approaching things logically. And so we hit it off really quickly. And so I was with the group about it, I think a year and a half or so before we met Kate. And that's how we all got together.
Interesting how people meet up, and I believe everything happens for a reason.
Mhm.
So I do have a couple of questions for both of you, because some of the stuff rang true, and I'm trying to understand it and your perspective of it as a paranormal investigator. So, Kate,
Yeah.
you said about the guy who lived in that house, the farmer. Now, knowing what you know now, do you think it's residual energy, or do you think it was a live, active energy in a sense where that existence through that person remains at that time and era, and you caught him through the visual?
Good question, because it was the only interaction I had with him, and at the time I thought it was an intruder, so it didn't click that it was paranormal, and I wasn't where I am now. I think I saw a blip in time. I think he was probably doing exactly what he was doing in his normal day. Maybe the bathroom was going into a barn. Like, I don't know the layout. I just know he just walked with purpose straight from one end of the room to the other. Maybe residual, maybe I just happened. I'm not the type of person to see a whole lot of things, and Robyn can attest to this. I hear more. I walk in a room and I'm like, I don't like this. I rarely see things. And this was one of those first times that I really, really saw a full figured apparition. So I definitely, I would say he was doing exactly what he was doing, and I just happened in that moment to be open and receptive and saw him.
Interesting. So she's seen him, at that time, right? Was he dressed accordingly to? Okay.
He had on jean overalls, no shirt. He had a hairy chest. He had like white long hair and had like a sun hat, just like a cowboy hat type, straw hat. And he was just walking just from this little tiny hallway, and it was from our kitchen. It was a kitchen, a laundry room, and our bathroom, but there was no door. Like, there was no way to go outside. This was a complete enclosed area. So I happened to see him walking by, and to me, I was like, is it a friend? Like, who was this? And all of a sudden I realized, well, it didn't look like my grandfather. It didn't look like any of my in-laws at the time. It sure as heck didn't look like my dad. So I went flying down thinking, well, did somebody break in? Did somebody, like, is this the landlord's somebody? And that's when I walked in that bathroom and was like, there's nobody here. The window is this big. Like, there's no way this 350-pound guy is getting out this little, like, tiny window. So
that happened to me too here. I don't know. I think I might have told you when you guys were here. When we first moved in, maybe like a year in, and you work, and the kids were really, really little, and I was upstairs, and I heard someone down here, and then I called the cops and everything. It was like this big, huge thing, and there's nobody here, and now I know, but then it's scary. It is really scary.
It's scary. It's as if two time zones between the physical and the spiritual cross.
Yeah.
Where people, and especially at a young age, through adolescence, you have clear thoughts. You can see the,
And let's talk about the stairs. You always bring up the stairs because you were talking about the cross, and you explain it the best, but it's stuck in my mind, the staircases.
Well, yes, some homes that are rebuilt over old cabins and Victorians, there's no stairs that exist in the new location because they didn't put the layout like that. But yet, through paranormal investigators, they hear people coming up and down the stairs. But the stairs don't exist, but they did exist with the previous home, which leads me to believe that somehow we're simultaneously, it's a multi-dimensional world where it's one of those things, that we're existing on different platforms somehow. And it's fascinating, and it's true.
Well, think about it this way too. Sometimes you only see an apparition, maybe just the upper body, just the lower body. True. Our plane may be here, theirs may be here or here. So where you're, doing your normal thing and you see half a body walk by, Civil War, something like that, maybe they're just on their plane and you just happen to catch that glimpse. Like when I saw this farmer, my son was barely a year old. So I was that new mom, hyper aware, hyper protective in a new home, had really no solid ground of this home. So I was just constantly like, every noise freaked me out. I had no idea. We were on a busy street. The front yard literally went like this. My son, in his little cart would fly down the driveway, and I'm like thinking he's going to hit oncoming traffic. So maybe in that moment, whatever I was doing, I was just able to get that right energy and was able to see him. And I noticed too, it happens more and more. Like when we were at Ohio State Reformatory, we had just finished an investigation. I was exhausted, but also like super hyper aware of where we were going. And I happened to look down the hallway and saw this weirdly old man with white hair again come out of the one cell, look, and then pop right back in. And I just remember going, there's no way I just saw that. And I went flying down after it.
There goes Katie running down the hallway in solitary. Bye, Kate.
They're all wondering where I'm going. I'm fully expecting again to see a guard, someone from the tour be like, oh, I'm down here. And there was nothing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I do think on the time thing, and I'm trying to remember which scientific entity this was. And I think it was the people at the CERN Collider have made a device where they were able to detect very slightly another dimension. And they think that there's maybe 12 or 13 like multiverse. And so we know like it sort of undulates and it moves. And this is my personal theory about the undulating and moving multiverse. So we're all existing at the same time. And for me and my thoughts, I've thought about this a long time and I don't have the equipment to prove this. But if it's undulating, let's say, and it's moving back and forth and they touch every now and then. And I think that can be like that window where we can see through to see those other timelines, but we're not exactly sure even now how time actually works. So it's really hard for us to come to conclusions as investigators. Are we seeing straight through? Are they here are they existing at the same moment in the same space? Are we seeing something that's replaying, or are we all existing doing our thing at the same time? It's very, very complicated, but sometimes I'd like to think that those multiverses and those timelines are just undulating and they touch, and we get to see just for that moment what's going on in their timeline, and then we can talk. Of course, we all get those intelligent EVPs and that sort of thing too, and I think that we're existing in the same space at the same time, and then there are those small separations that make it feel residual, that they're unaware of us, and most of the time I think we're unaware of them. It's extremely complicated subject matter, and I've been thinking for days.
It is complicated because you can go to 1,000 different theories.
Yeah.
But here's the truth: in simple forms, ghosts do exist, spirits do exist. Yeah. These in the simple form of things, they exist. Period. And not only through paranormal equipment, but through psychics or mediums. All these things they're us actually when we cross.
Disembodied voices, they're talking to us.
Disembodied voices can manipulate electricity, electronics, your cell phone, computers. It's been seen over and over and over and over and over again. And what I find fascinating is that some of the responses are intelligent and active as they know all time. And to me, that's a mind blower, because a lot of the recordings from previous investigators that have been here, can you see us? Yes. What am I doing? Sitting at the chair. Mm-hmm. What time does my clock say? 3 a.m. Yeah. And they know this.
Yes.
And I try to debunk
on the piece of paper and the room I'm
through on a clear EVP. And I'm not talking about a spirit box, because I don't buy into most of them. I really don't. The ones that go, and you try to make out the words like, no, I didn't want a pizza. I don't buy into that stuff. What I buy into is no one's talking. It's a digital recording. You ask a question, you give a minute response, and you play it back, and there it is. Yeah. That's a fact. You cannot debunk a fact, right? Yeah. Because that came from somewhere. Right. That came from somewhere. Now, Robyn, first of all, my condolences to your brother.
Thank you.
And I know it's a while back, but still, our condolences, because
Yeah.
that's a hard thing. And when that person had told you that your brother was stuck, now I personally don't believe that in a tragedy a person is stuck at that time and they never leave that time. So give me your perspective as a paranormal investigator now and your thoughts on that.
Now fast forward from 1997 to 2022, which sounds weird just saying that out loud, actually, doesn't it? It's like, it seems like the future, but it is. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that they get stuck. And I think in general, when some people pass, they're not even sure that they passed right away. And perhaps that person, I don't know what their personal experiences were in life, but perhaps they had come across some sort of activity that made them feel like someone was stuck or something like that. Or you just hear things repeated so many times that you start repeating things. You have no basis for that. What I do think, and I actually have my other brother recently passed away at the beginning of 2021, and he came to, it was a surprise to me. This helped me understand a little bit, although I didn't believe about the stuck thing for a long time, but he came to Lori Wagatha, one of the owners of Wildwood Sanitarium. While I was out, we were there investigating and filming, and I was out getting pizza. I came back and she's like, your brother's here. He's been saying things to me. Do you want to hear? I was like, of course I want to hear. So basically he came to her, and first of all, he proved himself to me that it was him by doing some very specific things that were very relevant to me. She had no idea what she was doing. She was making hand gestures and doing all this stuff. It was karate. Okay. But anyway, he said he was not sure he had passed away right away. It took him several days is what he said. And then he was met with someone, and he didn't explain who. Of course, this is through Lori, and she's just saying this stuff as fast as she can to me, and that he was given 4 choices on what he could do after he passed away. One was, and I can only remember 2 of them because I think I was just blinded by everything that she was saying to me, but they were important. One of them was that he could go ahead and move completely on and leave this plane of existence altogether. That was a choice. And the other one was that he could stay. He could stay and be some sort of a guardian. And she did not use the words guardian angel, but she did say some sort of a guardian. And I thought, well, that's really what he was in life. He was a protector of other people. He was, a really great person, and he wouldn't allow anyone to be hurt in front of him, that sort of thing. And I said, ho. It sounded like he was asking me. And I'm like, don't ask me. You do whatever feels great for you. If you think moving on is great, well, then you go. But my point about this is that he died on the coast by Houston, Texas, but on the coast down by Lake Charles, Louisiana. But he was bringing himself and talking to someone in Salamanca, New York, which is about an hour south of Buffalo. So he was traveling, that he wasn't stuck. He was able to go. And the thing about Wildwood on the side too is that people come from all over the world to visit this location. And one of the things that they report is that their loved ones, whether they're from Japan, whether they're from the United States, whether they're from wherever, come to them and talk to them at Salamanca at Wildwood Sanitarium. So my thought process is that if people get stuck, I just don't believe it, because I think they can travel wherever they really want to, and especially special locations, whether you want to call them conduits, portals. I said porthole. I say that as a joke sometimes, and I can't stop saying it. Portals, whatever it is that they have that certain energy. I just don't think people they can be maybe stuck because they're confused, and it's not a choice, but a thing that they're wrapped up in a timeline, perhaps. But just like physically and physics, you're stuck because you died of a traumatic experience here in this spot, and now you can never leave because of physics. No, I don't think so. No. Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree. Energy can do incredible things. It can't be created or destroyed, and
Correct.
It goes on
True.
through a consciousness that is a different altered state of thinking, and how we think here in the physical realm when we talk to spirits that have crossed over. One of the things you said, what I found interesting, is he can stay in this plane or leave. Yeah. And the question I guess I would ask is, if a spirit leaves this plane, can they come back or they can't come back for communication purposes?
Yeah, I don't know. We're starting to think that they can come and go. And I can't explain why, but I do think that they can come and go to a certain degree. But the thing that gets me about this though is that she made it sound like he was saying it was a definite gone thing, and this was his choice. So I don't know what planes we're talking about and what the threshold is for that. So in a way, it's like, can you go to wherever it is and then come back and visit every now and again your special places, your special people, but it made it sound like in this case, one of his choices was like whatever was next, like beyond. It made it sound very final when she said it. So there may be just all these layers of existences. Do you know what I mean? So it always gives you more questions,
than answers.
It's just so much to learn, and you just end up with question after question after question.
Yep.
Do either one of you or both of you believe in reincarnation?
Wholeheartedly. Yeah.
I do. I actually do. Yes.
Okay. So, and I believe in reincarnation as well, because I've had deja vu at young ages where I knew where I was. I just knew it. I couldn't have been there, but I was. So then my question is, because I agree that I believe in it as well, then at what point can you not communicate with someone who's crossed over because they were reincarnated? And if you can communicate with that person and they're reincarnated, who were you speaking to? A mimic? Or are you speaking to somehow the soul goes through different dimensions where we still exist on one platform, but we could exist on multiple platforms? And I say that because sometimes I feel like I could be somewhere else, like an out-of-body experience, for example, but I'm not there, but I am there through some kind of consciousness. And is that part of it? Is that part of, yes, we exist on other platforms as well, but we just don't realize it. Ladies, your thoughts?
If you go back to what you were talking about with energy doesn't die, I think that you have pieces of you. So you have that piece of you that's reincarnated. You have that piece of you that's still here. You have that doppelganger where somebody says, I swear you have somebody that looks just like you in France. I think those are all pieces of you, and it's all pieces of your soul. So you could, like, I remember in 2006, my brother was killed in a drunk driving accident, and going back to being stuck. I've never seen my brother or heard my brother or an EVP at the tree where he passed. There was one time shortly after he passed that a little kid said, are you related to the guy that's standing here, or something to that effect? And we were like, well, who? And he said, well, the guy that was here in the accident, he's here. And this little kid is 3-4 years old, like had no idea anything about it, told exactly what my brother looked like.
Wow.
And I've gotten in through mediums that he had the opportunity and has the opportunity to be reincarnated, to come back. But I also know that I've gotten EVPs from him, and I've gotten things at Wildwood of him coming through. So I think there's pieces of you that go on, but I think there's also pieces of you that live and continue to. And I think the more you talk about people and the more you give them energy and their stories and their history, I think that's your connection. So for us, that connection of Wildwood, it's almost like a giant lighthouse. We're all there, and all of our loved ones come through, and then we go home and we talk about our experiences and we talk about them and we give them more energy, and then we go back to that location, and it's just like it keeps feeding it like a giant battery.
Yeah.
Interesting. Robyn, your thoughts?
I do subscribe to a lot of what Kate just said, and I do think that there is some splitting, maybe not. There's something that we talk about in our group called the cloud consciousness, where certain places, certain people, like you can be attached in a certain way that part of you is always going to be either at that location, when you're interacting at that location or with that person in a way that you did when you were alive, that there's sort of a little bit of a split like that. And so if your soul is put back into another body later on, you're still existing like I'm existing on this plane right now. Allegedly I have a soul. That's what I've been told, although some people doubt it. But I'm here right now, but the person I was 1 or 2 lifetimes ago is still, still hauling wood, still still getting water from the well, still doing those sort of things. But the main part of me is here right now. But if you were to interact with me and I knew and at that well, I would still be able to, say, hi, I'm getting water, or whatever it is that was important to me, or that sort of thing. Like that's still there, almost like Kate was saying, just split kind of pieces of you. I'm dying to kind of tell a little story about what she was saying about her brother and the tree. I kind of want to talk about real quick. I just want to mention something about, I do astral projection, and I did write that book and that sort of thing. And I talk about it. I went and I met my brother who was murdered, where he told me that he was okay and that he was doing all these wonderful things. And he showed me all the places that he can go and that sort of thing. But real quick, one of the things I wanted to mention, we were at my friend had passed away. So we all, after his funeral, we all met at my brother's grave. And I'm just dying to tell the story, so I've got to. So anyway, one of my friends had a son. He was about 3 years old at the time. Walks up to my brother's grave. Doesn't know me from anybody. I traveled, 1,800 miles to be at this place or whatever. So doesn't know me from anywhere. This 3-year-old walks up and he points at me, and he points at the headstone. Points at me like this, and he's like point, and there's like 5 people standing around, and we're all freaking out. And he keeps pointing at the headstone and pointing at me, and then goes, huh? And like puts his little hands up like, hey. And I think it was my brother had to be standing there, or he could see. I'm not sure. Do you know what I mean? Like he could see that I was connected somehow. He had no idea what was going on. It's not like everybody was standing around going, that's your brother, and that's you, and that's your brother. It was just this little kid walked up, and then somehow miraculously was able to put his hands on top of this pretty tall headstone and just jump and sit on it. And he just stared at me. And I thought my brother was either in helping him inside him, or I know that he was actually there. So the part of me kind of drifted off on the original question. I'm sorry, because I was so fixated on what you had said.
Story, and it's so true how these young children can just, they're so open to everything.
Well, and that kind of brings up the fact that little kids tell you these very detailed stories about how they died in their previous life, going back to the reincarnation thing. Like I'll bring myself back to it. Yeah. They tell you very detailed things. They have no idea what they're even talking about. And then as they get a little older, they seem to fade, and they like grow into the body and to the who they are now. But you guys have probably heard those stories, right?
Most definitely.
We really have to really believe these kids too, our kids, and we have to really stop putting everything under the carpet and really like believing.
Most of our guests that we've interviewed for years, this starts at adolescence, where they see apparitions, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But we're always saying, "Oh, it's just your imagination." Yeah. And
I've heard stories of kids who can give their name, and I think it was a TV show that was, the mom said, well, let's start researching this, and they were actually able to find, wow, well, he's telling the story of he did die, in Normandy Beach, or he did, this thing. Like, how would my 3 or 4 year old know a full name and where he passed away, and that he was shot in the shoulder or, the leg? That's sort of like very specific things. So if that's not kind of proof of reincarnation, or I'd like to hear the explanation of how a toddler would know those details, and if we suspend our belief that the parents had never said anything to them about it, how in the world would they get that specific information?
And also the kids, they're a lot luckier than we were when we were little, because it's everybody's just so more open to paranormal and all of this right now.
Well, people are more receptive, especially the way the world is changing right now. Ladies, which one of you had any kind of dreams where deceased loved ones came through and they're trying to validate in the dream, hey, I'm okay?
I did.
Yeah. So most recently, my grandfather had passed away in 2018 now, I want to say. And it was probably a week after he passed. I was in a dream that we were at their camp, and I rounded this corner and there was a food truck, which, I mean, we were all about food and drinks and parties. And I rounded this corner and there was a food truck and he's standing there and his face was just shimmering. And it was my grandfather back when he was probably in his 50s. And he was a Marine. So he's this very staunch 6 foot, just kind of beast Hulk of a man. And he was just standing there. And I never speak to these people in my dreams, which is how I know they're more visits than dreams. But I walked up to him and I was like, Pop, you're okay. And he kind of like gave me this nod. And I go, well, let's go get a beer. Like, I have 1,000 questions. And he just kind of hugged me. And he always used to kiss me on the forehead. And he turned me and just pushed me forward. And I woke up. And I woke up hysterical. I'm like grabbing my boyfriend. I was like, get up. I have to tell you this. And I have all the notes still in my phone. And I was just like, that was it. And another one was shortly after my brother died. We were in a room. I have no idea what the room was. It was wood paneling, which I think was more like his mom's house. And he would always come up behind you and he'd like give you this giant bear hug. And that's all it was just his arm. And I could see it. And I was just doing this. And he just put his head behind me and we just hugged. And I went to turn to try to, give him another hug. And I woke up. And for me, that's what happens. I don't speak to people. There's rarely audible conversation. It's all through feel and touch and emotion. And that's to me. And when I wake up and I can tell you every single little detail, even now, 5-6 years later, that's a visitation.
Right.
That's
you can tell the difference between a visitation and just a dream. And then my brother who was murdered, I was extremely distraught afterwards. It had consumed my life. It was a very violent stabbing, like a very violent stabbing. I would go out to his grave all the time and I would talk to him and I would lay there and all this stuff. So finally he came to me in a dream and it was a visitation. And he said, stop what you're doing. He said, I can see everything you're doing. This is not healthy. He said, look at me. No scars. Look at my face. My arm works. He had a industrial accident. It kind of worked, but it was messed up. He's like, look at me. My arm works. I have no scars. It's all gone. He said, I don't have anything. There's nothing wrong with me. I am perfect. I am happy. You need to stop. And and that was the dream I mentioned a little while ago, where he was like, look at the places that I am. Look where I am. Look what I can go. I'm fine. You're not fine.
It's
sort of thing. Yes.
The people they leave behind, we're the ones that are going through all this pain. And I guess it's hard because I've heard stories like this before.
Yeah.
And they're real dreams. They're real.
It changed my life. That visitation changed my entire life. I'm telling you, I was not doing well. Mm-hmm. And I literally woke up from that and went, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to see him again, Yeah.
I believe that. Yeah. And I've had those dreams myself. And that's why I asked that. And it kind of makes me think, are we actually leaving this soul at that point, leaving the body, meeting them in their dimension?
I think the more you can control your dreams and the more comfortable you are in that dream state, I think it's easier to connect with loved ones. A couple years ago, my former mother-in-law had passed away, and her and I were very, very close. You leave a family and sometimes things happen, and sometimes, you still connect with people. And she was the one person that I was never able to get her through to my dreams. And just probably within the last 2 weeks, she's been coming more and more and more. And I'll walk downstairs. I'm like, hey, Nick, Grammy says hi. Hey, she's doing this. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing at night? And I was like, well, moon water next to the bed helps. But, great jewelry that your friends make you. I was like, you have to be open. So I think that the more you talk about these people and you connect with them, I think it helps. I think bringing that energy, and I try at night to just kind of, there's someone I think I need to connect to. I try to say like, hey, come on through.
Yeah.
3 and 5 a.m. is usually my good time to dream. I'll wake up anytime. And I'm like, all right, something's about to happen. And then I go right back to sleep. And that's usually when it happens.
Yep.
How would either one of you tell people that are trying to connect with a loved one the best way to communicate with them and validate that it's really them coming through?
Ooh.
I would think just as far as trying the first part, there's like multiple parts to that, but the first part I would just say be somewhere quiet. You don't necessarily have to be meditating, but talk to them like you did when they were alive and you could physically see them. Just keep talking about them to other people. Talk to them. Tell them that you miss them. Tell them that you love them. Say their name. Keep their name. And that's the first part of it, because more than likely, whether or not you're going to be able to hear them talk back to you, who knows your location, the energy, their energy level, their willingness to do so, your ability to hear it. There's a lot of factors on the other end of that. But I would say that if they would trust the fact that I have been doing this and hearing these people and talking to people, and let's say I'm not crazy and this is real, they can hear you. And if it is the fact that you just want to tell them you love them and you miss them, say it. Yeah. Say it out loud. They can hear you. And I don't know about the proof part on the other end.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
I think you know when you've connected with them, and and even if you don't see their face, if there's something in that dream that makes you feel comfortable, then you know it was them. I mean, even a smell, a color, or
you can ask for a sign. That's true.
Yeah.
People do that all the time. A feather, a penny,
I was going to say that's another thing, code words. If you write on a piece of paper, if you have a dream journal, write down, like, I want to talk to my nanny, and come through with the word teacup. Even if you don't put it out there, someone like Lori or Brooke or a medium or anyone,
or a random person. Yeah.
You might turn on the radio. Like my brother, who was 20 years old when he passed, one of his favorite songs was In Your Eyes. And every once in a while, I will flick on the radio. And how many times in this century do you hear In Your Eyes?
Right.
Come on the radio.
That actually just happened with my other brother. Like, that song Convoy. There's that song Convoy from the 70s. You never hear that. And we walked into his favorite place where he liked to sit, and have drinks at the pub down the street or whatever. And of all the music that they play, I walked in and Convoy started playing. And I said, you have to be kidding me or whatever. But I knew he loved that place.
Yep. And that's the thing. I'll get that. I'm like, all right, Anson, I get it. All right, you're around.
I believe that. Music is one of the biggest ways that I believe spirits communicate. And it's no more coincidence when you think about that person, then within an hour or so, you're hearing a song, and wait a second, I remember being on vacation with this person, or they were at home and the song was playing, and
somebody just mentions it randomly. You're like, what?
Yep.
Convoy. What movie was that song? That was a 70s movie.
Convoy? I don't know. I'm sure I'm much too young to remember.
That was like a Burt Reynolds. That was a Burt Reynolds.
I was going to say, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But that's good because a lot of people that we speak to try to communicate with loved ones, and it's a very hard and sad time for a lot of people, as we all know what's going on in the world, and death is all around us. But, as spiritualists, I believe that it's hard. It's very, very hard to accept someone that's died because, in the physical realm, there's part of us that does say they're gone, we'll never see them again. But the spiritual part says, wait a second, hold it.
We can understand.
I'm a paranormal investigator. Right. I've spoken to the other side. I know we go on.
Not that it's any easier, but
it's not easier, but it's a validation.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to put into my head that, no, we do go on, because I've made communication with friends that have crossed over that is nearly impossible, but they were showing me the possibilities are real. It's, and Robyn, when you said about your brother, and that rings a lot of things, because a friend of mine crossed over, was like, no, you need to be okay. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I look at me. And he looked great in the dream.
Yes.
But the dream was real.
It's us.
And the dream, he had a glow around him. He looked like he was younger and vibrant and full of wisdom. And I was the one that needed the validation of, do we go on, and are you okay? And for those people that are listening, look, there's 4 of us, and we're paranormal investigators, and some of us have abilities, and I can promise the listener out there that you can communicate, and a true loved one is never gone. A loved one is never gone forever. And my method would be the dream state, because if you have clear thoughts with no TV, no radio, no cell phone, and you open yourself up, sometimes when you think about that person, their energy will come and they will validate, hey, I'm here. But then other means, like you belong to a paranormal team, and I was kind of impressed with the equipment you brought down here to the Horsefly Chronicles home.
Yes, that was my question.
That was different.
Yeah. Let's talk about the amazing technique that you guys have while investigating, because it's different. And what makes you guys different from other paranormal teams?
That's a lot of a question. That's such a big question. Well, you mentioned a couple of things, and we don't always rely on our equipment, but we do have some specialized equipment that we have thought of and invented and brought to fruition. And one of the things we do is our devices collect a lot of data. Okay, that's one thing that we do. We're a data-driven team in that respect, and we do use some of a lot of the methods that a lot of other people use. But when our devices, when you see them glowing and maybe going off or whatever, trust that every second all of that data is being recorded into databases so that we can correlate it later. That's the big thing. We try to use scientific method whenever we certainly can. So we go back and say, well, here was this EVP, or here was this these 3 knocks when we asked for them. Let's go back and see if any of the devices recorded fluctuations. And there's a lot of different things that we're recording. The standard atmospheric type things, like I've always considered ghosts weather, because if we're living in this physical world and you use physics, they have to use what we have at hand to manifest. So ghost weather, that sort of thing. But then there's some other things that we use, and boy, we have some really fun stuff coming up too. So, I mean, by the end of the night, each little piece of equipment we have may have 10, 20,000 pieces of data. So we can literally watch something come towards the device, walk away from the device. So if we can, we have a timestamp. So if we have the EVP timestamp, the device is sitting there, we can say, wow, it said, hi, here I am. At the same time, all these different things changed about the atmosphere at the same exact time. So it shows, so there's that part of it. And what makes us different, Kate? And there's, you can have the hard part.
She's going to come with that question.
I think it's exactly that. I think it's that we don't just say, hey, can you pull my hair? Hey, here's a recorder. What's your name? We try really hard to do all of that, but then, say, well, ironically, so the camera that we were using at your house, guys, nothing recorded. There's it completely wiped my SD card, nothing recorded. There was one photo that I took in the hallway as a joke, thinking that it was just going to be something to add to our investigation. That was the only thing that was saved on that SD card. Everything else was gone. So we don't just rely on one piece. It's, okay, we all have the same recorder. We all have this. We all have that. We're walking around with our phones, and we're trying to see that correlation of, okay, we have a cat ball here. I have a cat toy. I have 3 cats. So I'm going to bring this stupid toy and see what happens. And if we can get that to light up, and we can get that EVP, and we can see that the weather app, our weather technology is saying this, and our I'm losing my train of thought here. Yeah. If we can get all these different little pieces to line up, then it's like, okay, well, if we got it once, can we recreate it? And if we know that water is a conductor, and we know this type of crystal is a conductor, and we know this is a conductor, can we not only recreate it, but then give it a battery? And then can we give it a bigger battery? And then can we do it in this part of the house, that part of the house, and that part of the house.
Right. And then can we take it to another location and repeat the whole thing and see if we can get, and really the object is can we hone in on what it is that opens that clarity of communication, that sort of thing. And really, like she was saying, like Kate was saying, hone in on what it is. Is it the water? Is it the, and people laugh at crystals and all that, but you know what? They're in your watches. They're in all your technology. They're in the computer that you're using right now to listen or watch this show. They actually do conduct and hold electricity and other things. So basically, if we can, what we're trying to do is narrow all that down so that we can open a better channel for communication. And yes, there'll probably be variations on it, be from location to location, but we're going to try to open up channels to clear long-term communication so that you don't have to doubt what that ghost box is really saying. Like, is it a radio that you're hearing? Is it interference? Is it whatever? That we're really trying to open up a nice, clear. And is that going to be easy? Is it easy? It's not easy. But the one thing that's going to make it believable and people are going to understand it is that they're going to be able to see, because we're going to make and we do make our data, but we're going to have a huge database where people can go search it. They're going to be able to go look and say, this is valid scientific method. A lot of people in paranormal, most people that were laughed at a lot of times were not taken seriously by the scientific community. It's one thing we also are trying to change by utilizing the methods and the peer review and that sort of thing, so that people can go in and say, this is valid research. And so I'm going to trust this piece of equipment. I'm going to trust this conclusion that they came to, because not only did they come to it, they actually handed over all their stuff or their methodology to other people to try it. They tried it. They've come to the same conclusion. So this should be valid. So if we can do all of that, if we can hone it all in, hand someone a piece of equipment or a method, it doesn't have to be equipment, a method of some kind, and say, this is valid because us and everybody else have been trying it out and it's working. I think that's one of the things that kind of makes us different, maybe.
I like it. These are different. We've had numerous teams here at the Horsefly Chronicles home. I like the way you work. And it is different. It's a different technique, which I was finding very interesting. Unfortunately, the hour is up. The show is over.
Yeah,
really quick, ladies. We definitely want to do part two, both of you, because you're both very, very intelligent, well-spoken, and you have a lot of knowledge within the field. Really quick, where can people find you, and what do you have going on?
And where can we find your book, Robyn?
Okay, you can find You and I Research very easily on Facebook by searching for Paranormal Puzzle by You and I Research, because we do have a show on the Paraflix network called Paranormal Puzzle, where we're putting all of this kind of out to the public for that. You can find my book on Amazon by searching Robyn Ramsey or Astral Projection. You can find it there. Kate, anything else?
Find us on Paranormal Puzzle. My personal page is just Katie Peak on Facebook. You can search it that way on Instagram as well. You can also search it at, I think it's Irish Girl 518.
Oh, right. Right. I'm Sweet Robyn. I'm Robyn Sweet Roll Ramsey on Facebook and Instagram, Robyn Sweet Roll Ramsey. You can find me there too. Connect with us anyway, and we'll direct you where you need to go.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. It's been a great, quick, fast, intelligent show.
Always too fast.
Yep. Julie, wrap it up.
All right, guys. Well, we want to have a special thank you to Carnation for fully sponsoring the show. We love them. Thank you so much. Please join us next Monday night on United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM from New Orleans. And stay tuned from the Angel Rock with the amazing Laura Lee Houghton.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great, safe night.
Thank you
and we'll
so
catch
much.
you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.